So, first of all, a big welcome to you all. Thank you for coming to this business meeting of the Central Pacific Conference. My name is Pam Rossio. Oh, and um, and I your moderator um, till the end of today. And we are the United Church of Christ in Southern Washington, Oregon, and Southern Idaho. We are called to nurture spiritual growth, foster stronger connections, amplify our prophetic witness, and to become an anti-racist conference. I am so glad that you are here. And I want to apologize if for some time during this meeting my dogs start barking. I'm trying to keep them under control, but not always successful. So if you haven't, so maybe they're just cheering along for us today, but hopefully they'll be silent. If you haven't already, please make sure you put a capital D, like we've been saying, before your name so we know if you're a delegate, and following your name, put a comma and the name of your church. And as Tyler and other people have said, if you are clergy and are a standing member in this conference, you are automatically a delegate also. A big thank you to our tech hosts. I know that many of you who are running Zoom functions at your church, you know how much work it takes. So thank you to Gail D, Nancy Cook, Adam Hange, and Tyler Connolly. We make a great team, and I am so thankful to be a part of that team too. So thank you. And for those of you, a big thank you to everyone that's joining us today. I know that everybody is busy and you have lots of things to do, but I'm so glad that you are being part of our living water on being together as our church, as our conference. So if you're not on a computer today, I think most people are, but if you're not, I will try to verbalize as much that is shared in the chat as we can, or as I can. And we will do our very best to stay on schedule today. We tried to give time in our schedule to get questions answered before we take the votes. So putting much of what we would do in a whole day into a few hours is a little tough, but I think we have a good schedule. So hopefully it will work. And as Adam said last year, we are aiming for connection and not perfection. So definitely, I feel connected with you all, and we appreciate your patience, your understanding, and your grace. So one of the things that, as you know, our theme is living water, and we put out video asks to hear where people find their living water. And I kind of strong-armed the board to make sure that we got ones from the board. And we don't have everybody. I don't have a very strong arm virtually, but we want to share so you can see who the board is and where a board and some staff members, where they find their living water. So
where do I go for living water? I was born in the land of 10,000 lakes. I've lived by the Pacific Ocean, and now I live in river country. I am most settled and spiritually content when I live near the flowing water.
For living water, I come outside to Indian Creek Trail in Hood River, Oregon.
Hi there. For my living water, I go to scripture, prayer, music, and friends. Because you know what? We all need friends.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I come to Nate Creek at Camp Adams seeking the living water. And in the words of Annie Dillard, it is the live water and light that bears from undisclosed sources the freshest news, renewed and renewing, world without end.
my living water is Willamette River. I love the water. I love the people. I love the animals. I see God in so many places along this river. And I'm so thankful to have it in my life.
Where I go for living water is music. It's the music, the harmonies, and the lyrics that fill me up.
God-given nourishment for all of our spiritual and physical needs, like the Columbia River, cool, refreshing, wonderful living water.
I'm Reverend Adam Hange, pastor of Hillsborough UCC and immediate past moderator for the Central Pacific Conference. And this is a place that is living water to me. The swimming hole at Camp Adams and watching our little ones jump in and take the plunge.
Having spent many years in the institutional ministries of the United Church of Christ, I find living water in its institutions, in theological education, and in the Council for Health and Human Service ministries. God be praised.
This is where I go for living water. This is my reading nook. There are my books. This is where I have my morning meditation, my morning devotionals, my silent meditation every morning for living water.
I go to the Still Speaking Writers Group daily devotion that appears on my phone every morning. I really appreciate the scripture that is presented and then the thoughtful meditation that follows. It prepares me for the joys, challenges, and opportunities that I will face each and every day.
Hi, I am Jennifer Seach, pastor at Beaver Creek UCC, chair of local church ministries. And where do I go to get living water? It is outside, out here in the trees and the green and the beauty in creation. It's living water.
See, I'm so glad that we are doing those video asks. Just watching these make me feel more connected to you all, and to hear where we all find the living water is amazing. And it's not too late. We would love to hear, where is your living water coming from? So it's easy to do. You just need the connection. You can find it on our website under the conference. So give it a try. It's really fun. And we also think it would be really useful for your church to do these from time to time. So now we have Tyler is going to join us.
Hello, everyone. I get to gather us in a spiritual grounding. We've already been grounded by the music of Leah and by the videos from our board. But I want you I assume most of us probably have something liquid next to us. I have my tea. Maybe you have coffee. Maybe you have your breakfast shake that you haven't eaten yet. I invite you to take something that is close to you, some liquid. And if not, just sit, put your feet on the ground. Hold liquid in your hand. Remember that you are mostly water. Maybe take a sip. Feel that water on your tongue, refreshing your body. And then in your mind, reach out to the bodies of water that are close to you. Notice the water that runs in our cities and our towns and our communities. The water in tanks we've collected from our roofs. Notice the water of the rivers and the streams that flow through this land. Those huge bodies of water, the ocean that is closest to us, the ocean that is close to Leah. And then drink in the living water that is Christ, the living water of the Spirit that refreshes our dry bones, that invites us here, we who are mostly water, in a world that is mostly water. Amen.
Well, Natalie Becker has filmed for us out on Camp Adams our land acknowledgement. So we're going to share that with you.
Hi, I'm Natalie Becker, co-director of Outdoor Ministries, and I'm here on site at Camp Adams at Nate Creek. It's my honor and privilege today to read to all of you the land acknowledgement of the Central Pacific Conference, United Church of Christ. We acknowledge that we all reside on the common ground of the First Nations of this region. As we ground ourselves in this sacred common land, we recognize our siblings, the Shoshone, Bannock, and Nez Perce. We acknowledge the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz, the Coquille, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla, and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We acknowledge the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua, the Klamath, and the Burns Paiute. We acknowledge that led and justified by the doctrine of discovery, people of European descent created the fences and boundaries that carved this common sacred land into property to be owned, bought, and sold, and that in so doing disconnected us from Creator's call to live in communion with all of creation. As we gather as the Central Pacific Conference of the United Church of Christ in business and in worship, we acknowledge that this disconnection has resulted in grave racial and environmental injustices, which we dedicate ourselves to redress in theology and practice. We acknowledge and honor the spiritual authority of the First Nations who first received this land as a gift from Creator. We honor the elders and commit ourselves to ongoing practices of listening, repentance, and reconnection.
Begin with our prayer of invocation. Holy One, Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer, you who are known by indeed many names, we begin by acknowledging your presence among us this day. As we gather together from the Pacific coast to the Cascades, to the base of the Rocky Mountains, from the Columbia to the Klamath Rivers to the Great Pacific Ocean, from communities of faith that look in some ways very similar and other ways very, very different, we gather together today. However we arrive in this time, whether hurried or peaceful, tired or anxious, let us begin by recognizing that you are as close to us as our next breath. Let us begin by recognizing that you are the source of every source where we find living water. And for that, we give you all of our thanks and praise. We gather today, todos juntos, not simply out of routine or tradition or because our Constitution and bylaws require it, but with a sacred purpose: to foster stronger connections, to nurture spiritual growth, to amplify our prophetic witness, and in our continued striving to become an anti-racist conference. We are here to continue the same work that you have called us to week in and week out. For together we are the members of your United Church of Christ from across Southern Washington, Oregon, and Southern Idaho. And we believe that we have been called to be contemplatives in action, called to be witnesses for justice and peace in this time and in this place. And as we do so, we recognize that we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, those who've gone before. And they have gifted us this institution with all of its imperfections and potential. So as stewards of this great legacy, again, we thank you for your presence with us today. In the presence of our siblings in faith who across time and space join their spirits with ours in this work. And we pray once more that you will grant us your wisdom, your grace, courage, and vision, so that we might faithfully be about the work to which you have called us in this gathering. May this time be filled with life-giving joy. May your spirit bubble up within us, changing and transforming and renewing us and through us, our world, so that your shalom, your perfect love, justice, and peace will roll down like many waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. It is in the name and way of Jesus the Christ we pray. Amen.
I'll rename you. So welcome. We are so glad that you're here. And I would like to now officially call this business meeting of the 2021 General Assembly of the Central Pacific Conference of the United Church of Christ to order. My first official piece of business is to apologize for many little mistakes here and there that I've made on the agenda. Last night, I reloaded it, so if you happen to print it out, I know I had dates wrong. I had 2020 and something, so please forgive me. I am full of lots of mistakes, but I have really good intentions, so I know that you will have lots of grace, or I hope you will have lots of grace for me. So, one of our big jobs as the official piece of business is to vote. So we have a test vote for you, which Gail is going to put up. And our choices on voting is yes, no, and abstain. And if you aren't able to vote on the poll, or if you have more than one person that's a delegate on your screen, you can text. So one person can vote, and then the other person can text their vote to Jean Parker. And we'll put this in the chat too. Jean Parker's number is 541-980-5138. And will one of my chat people put that in the chat for me? And then he can report how many texts he gets. So just as a reminder, you have to be a delegate to be able to vote. And if you're clergy, you're automatically a delegate. If you're on the board, you're automatically a delegate also. So Gail, would you like to put up the first poll? This is a really important one. Would you spend the money to go into space? If you had the money, would you do it? Okay, so Jean, how many votes did you get?
I got 2 votes.
And what was it? Yes or no?
One was yes and one was no. I'm not sure what that means.
So it looks overwhelmingly that most of us would not spend the money to go into space. And I believe Leah saw this poll question, and I think she also voted no, that even though there could be some good things that come out of it. So we know where we stand on this space. There's so many other places we can use that money, we think. All right, thank you. That worked. Thank you, Gail. Our next job is, first of all, to ask Debbie. Debbie has been behind the scenes checking off and counting. I'm not sure how you're doing on that, Debbie, but do we have the necessary 50 delegates to vote, to move forward?
Yes, we have 71 delegates representing 23 churches.
Okay.
If I've calculated correctly.
And do you want to read off the churches? And then if we haven't captured somebody, you can holler and say, Lake Oswego is here, if you're not read off.
I've got Ainsworth, All People, Central Oregon, Ashland, Bethel Beaverton, Bridgeport, Clackamas, Condon, Congregational Church of Lincoln City, Hillsboro, Pocatello, Boise First Congregational, Boise Right Congregational, First Congregational Portland, Hillsdale Community, Lake Oswego, Medford, Nampa, Riverside Hood River, The Dalles, Waverly, and Vancouver.
Okay, did anybody else, is anybody else represented and their church wasn't named?
Okay, this is Alita, and I think that Gail put D in front of my name, but I'm not sure that that's correct. It's from Corvallis.
Oh yeah, sorry, Corvallis. Yeah, sorry.
So Dana McBrien from Salem, I'm a clergy representative.
Sheila Daniels, Smyrna.
Excellent.
Jennifer Seach from Beaver Creek.
I miss Jennifer.
Edie Randall Bodman from Kairos, Milwaukee.
Did we capture everybody? I'm glad that we're verbally saying it. And honestly, it was great to hear all the names of the churches. Thank you for being here. And because we are part of each other's living water. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So now what we need to do, first of all, I want to say that David Avison, who is a member of Bethel Beaverton, is going to be our parliamentarian. So he is in the background, making sure that we're following the Robert's Rules of Orders when we have questions. And so thank you, David, for saying yes. And anyway, I'm just glad that you're here in case we need your assistance. So thank you for your service today. And now we need to, hopefully you've looked at the standing rules. I had to look at them again this morning to go, okay, what are they? So what we need to do is to vote on the adoption of the standing rules. So it is time to vote again. And I will see if I can get the G in your name this time, Jean. So if you, Gail, if you would get up the poll. Jean, how many texts did you get?
Sorry, one so far.
Oh, the poll ended. So I guess we are done. So we have, 51 voted yes, 1 voted no, and 2 abstained. So the standing rules are adopted. Thank you. And now our next order of our item of business is to approve our agenda and the 2019 Annual Gathering minutes, which last year I took because I was still secretary, also a moderator-elect. So if there is no objection, we will adopt them by consensus. But if you don't support this, you can raise your hand to speak to it or indicate that you don't approve in the chat. Or if you have any oh, and I think, Mike, are you saying it says the 2020? You're right. It should be the 2020 minutes in the agenda. So we are approving the 2020 annual gathering minutes. I think I fixed it, but some people probably have my old one. So it looks like we are in support or by consensus for adopting the minutes. Thank you. And Jenny Ott from Lake Oswego will be presenting our nominations slate. Thank you, Jenny. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. I appreciate it. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you all can see this. First of all, I just want to say thank you to our nominations team, and thank you to all of you who have been serving in the conference this year. We are the conference together, and it's because of all of us sharing our gifts and energies and passions that we're able to do the work of the CPC. And so I want to thank everyone who has served, and also thank everyone who has said yes to serve in the year ahead. So what you see in front of you is our current slate. This was updated as of yesterday just to add a couple more names. So I'm going to walk through who we're nominating and who we're voting on today. You can see the key at the top, which designates those names that are in bold are those who we're voting on for this year. The asterisk denotes the chair, a rep is the board representative, and unexpired means that someone is filling an unexpired term. So you can see under our board of directors, these are our officers here. Vicky Stifter is being elected as moderator, Cinta Butts as moderator-elect. The rest of the officer positions are staying the same. We voted on them in previous years. And then at large, we are adding David Toma from Bethel Beaverton, first term as an at-large representative. And then our ministry team representatives, we have an opening still on Committee on Ministry. That team will be determining their board representative at a later meeting. John Boodstra will be representing Justice and Witness, and Jeannie Randall Bodman is coming on board representing Wider Church Ministries. Then moving on to our Committee on Ministry. Again, we have Becky Martin and Melanie Uman continuing as co-chairs of that team. And then folks that we're voting on for this year, Dana McBrien, term 2, Laura Lee Kent, term 2, Caroline Murphy, term 2, Diane Rodriguez, term 1, Polly France, term 1, Lou Miller, term 1, Kat Allard, term 1, and Jean Avison for term 1 as well. Justice and Witness Ministries, we have, that will be chaired again by John Boonstra, who's also our board rep. And then we are adding Sharon Erickson and Tara Wilkins, both of whom are fulfilling unexpired terms, which means they'll be eligible for 2 additional terms if they so choose. Star Reardon coming on for term 2, Paula Soul term 1, Ed Keener term 1. Moving on to our local church and educational ministry team, we have 4 folks that we're voting on. Jennifer Seach, who's also our the chair and the board rep, coming on for term 2. Brendan Curran, term 1. Jennifer Brownell, term 1. And Katie Cook, term 1. You'll also see there are 3 vacancies on local church ministries. So those are each for unexpired terms. So we will be accepting nominations from the floor for those teams. I can put a description of the teams in the chat in just a minute, but basically local church and educational ministries supports and enhances the connection and the ministry among our local churches. And it does everything from supporting educational workshops, swap meets, the youth gatherings around the conference to the annual clergy retreat. And so we are looking for folks who are passionate about local church ministries, about education, and helping our congregations work together. Moving onward to wider church ministries, we are electing Judith Reinhardt Nelson for a term 1 from Beaver Creek. And then once again on wider church ministries, we have 3 vacancies still, 1 for an unexpired term and 2 for first terms. And wider church is a team that works on our global partnerships, in particular, nurturing our relationship with the Philippines and supporting the Palestine-Israel network. And then also just doing a lot of work to kind of make us more aware of global issues. And so again, looking for people who have a passion for justice, in particular on the global scale. And both local church and wider church ministries are, well, all of our ministry teams are 3-year terms. And so that's, again, what we'll be looking for if there are folks who have passions and would like to serve on either of those 2 teams. Our nominations team, we are electing some more people to that as well. Gail D. is coming in to fulfill an unexpired term. Jeannie Randall Bodman for term 2, Chuck Curry, term 1, Kat Allard, term 1, Jean Avison, term 1. Jean will also be a co-chair with me next year, and Michael Ellick, term 1. And then what you have below that are just not anything being voted on this year, but the people currently slated to be synod delegates, our current alternate delegates, and then the members of the working groups. And these working groups are appointed by our board of directors. So this is the slate as we have it this year. Again, we'll be voting on it a little bit later in the meeting. What we have done is basically we are within the threshold of our bylaws, which are 6 to 14 people per team. And so we have met what we need for the bylaws. Where we have vacancies are basically where the team chairs have asked for a certain number of people that they would like to have serve on a team. And so that's why you'll see slightly different numbers for each team, and then why there's vacancies, a certain number of vacancies on each team as well. So if you would like to nominate yourself or nominate someone else, you're welcome to do that. Before we take our vote, you can put the names in the chat. Please make sure if you're nominating someone else that they are agreed to be nominated. You can put their name in the chat. And you can also, I'll also put my cell phone number in the chat. You can text me or email me as well. And then we'll come back around to this a little bit later in the meeting. Pam, do you want me to take any questions now? And I will, again, I'll drop in the chat those team descriptions if you would like more information on the teams, and I'll also put my email and phone in the chat if anyone needs to reach me to nominate anyone for these teams. Thank you.
And if you haven't been on a team before, I highly recommend it. You're going to make some great connections and learn a lot about the work of the conference. So thank you, Jenny. So next in our schedule is Tyler is going to introduce I think we have a break, correct?
Yes. So
we are
it's
running a little ahead of schedule.
Woo! Yay! I'm sure we'll make it up later. So we're going to take a break now, and I'm going to play a video that was made by our General Minister and President, John Dorhauer. And it's slides of things that bring him to living water, the things in his life that are living water. And in the background is music by his son, who is a jazz musician and is part of the Heisenberg Uncertainty Players. And so I invite you to listen to the music and watch the slides and get up, move around. Remember that you have a body. It's very vibrant music. You could dance if you wanted to. And then right after that, we're going to play, when you hear the music stop, recommend that you pay closer attention. And there's going to be a video about one of our members here in the conference who got a big award at the national setting. Oh,
Now, as the photos roll by, I pray that your own mind wanders to what feeds your soul and refreshes your spirit. Finding time to just be who you are and to drink from the fount of living water is so important.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Tara Barber, and I serve as your Minister for Ministerial Support and Accountability on the MESA team in the national setting. and it's my joy and honor today to introduce to you the 2021 Antoinette Brown Society Award recipients. Bishop Yvette Flunder, a San Francisco native, has served her call through prophetic action and ministry for justice for over 30 years. Celebrating Bishop Flunder's lifelong call to blend proclamation, worship, service, and advocacy on behalf of those most marginalized in church and in society, and in the birthing of City of Refuge and the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, we are delighted to present her the Catalyst Award. And you may know the Reverend Linda Jaramillo best for her 10 years of faithful service as our Executive Minister of Justice and Witness Ministries, where she oversaw the church's work on human rights, on racial, environmental, economic, and gender justice in the United States and around the world. Linda's leadership style is connective, bridging justice work with advocacy and empowering women's ministry throughout our denomination. We are pleased to present her with a Trailblazer Award. Susan Brooks Thistlethwaite is President Emerita and Professor Emerita of Chicago Theological Seminary. She is the first CTS president to have been awarded the honorific title of President Emerita. Often asking, who is left out here, or how would this impact women, she led by intention and example, creating female leaders for the church and world. It is our pleasure to present Susan a Trailblazer Award. May you join me in celebrating these amazing women, their trailblazing and catalyzing ministries, and all of the ways that women boldly serve in the United Church of Christ.
Thank God for Linda Jaramillo. At the Antoinette Brown Awards, we were invited to say, I am who I am because of, and then name women, and Linda Jaramillo is one of those women. I am who I am because of her being in the world. Now I get to introduce our, I'm just going to look at my, and make sure that this is where we are. Yes. So now I get to introduce our Huneman Award winner for this year. And I will say that when I heard this person was nominated, my first response was, I can't believe they haven't already gotten one before. The Huneman awardee this year is someone whose name I hear over and over again in this conference, who is loved in Idaho and in Southern Oregon and in Washington and in Portland, and whose presence, again, is someone who I am because they led the way. And so our Huneman Award winner this year is the Reverend Hector Lopez. And I think that he's here, if someone would spotlight him. And we, Linda Jaramillo, who couldn't be here today, wanted to say some words about Hector. And so she recorded them in a video. So Hector, we have a video that Linda recorded for you.
Thank you, Pam and Adam and Tyler, for the invitation to share a few words about my mentor, my friend, my brother, member of my familia. Hector, I am so sorry that I can't be here live on Zoom with you at this moment, but I am actually on my way to New Mexico for a few days of spiritual recharge and in my own homeland. There is a saying in Spanish that says, no se sabe a dónde vas sin saber de dónde vienes. We cannot know where we are going without knowing where we've been. Well, here's where Hector's been. The Reverend Dr. Hector Edmundo Lopez is the son of Florencio Blanco and Julia Carrillo Lopez, immigrants from Mexico, dedicated Congregationalist and UCC lay leaders and members of the church. The United Church of Christ benefited from the faithful commitment of Don Florencio and Doña Julia, their guidance and example paved the way for their children, Hector, Lilia, and Humberto, and many other Latino and Latina and Latinx leaders. I've had the distinct honor of knowing and learning from them, the whole Lopez Carrillo family, for some 40 years since I came to the United Church of Christ. Reverend Lopez has an extensive history spanning to many settings, national and local churches and conferences in California, Oregon, Idaho, and Washington, and frankly, all around the world. Reverend Lopez was one of the founders of the Western Hispanic Ministry Strategy Team that was created to give a contextual and cultural enlightenment of strategies for church development, prophetic ministry, and leadership formation in this region in the West. The team emphasized partnerships with conferences in this region and in the national environment of the United Church of Christ. Reverend Lopez was also the co-founder of the United Church of Christ Council for Racial and Ethnic Ministries, where he delivered a keynote address just this summer at General Synod. Prior to that, he was actually a co-founder of the Interfaith Council for Greater Portland, more recently, I should say. And prior to his retirement, many of us know Hector served as a conference minister of the Central Pacific Conference. Reverend Hector has been a member of inspiration and a role model for the expansive constituency of the United Church of Christ, to the broader Christian community, to the interfaith siblings throughout his life and the career of the church. Many will say that there are no boundaries or barriers or borders for Hector. He just loves everyone and loves himself into everyone. And that certainly continues to be the case at Ainsworth United Church of Christ in Northeast Portland, where our pastor, the Reverend Lim Spouse Lopez, leads our congregation. Hector is a volunteer there. He sits in the pews, he inspires, he brings laughter and humor, and most of all, he really brings love to everybody in the congregation. He is loved and beloved by all of us there. It is for all this reason, and for many more, that I think it couldn't be more fitting, a more fitting recognition from the Central Pacific Conference to honor the Reverend Dr. Hector E. Lopez with the Reuben Huneman Award for Christian Leadership. I love you, brother. Take care. We'll see you soon.
This comes as a great surprise, and I never know how to respond to the words of Linda, because she and I go way back, but she's very kind, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the work that I've done across the years, and I certainly appreciate the work that I've done here. I was blessed with an incredible staff, with incredible partners in ministry, Gene Ross. The fellowship across this conference was precious, and I honor and thank them for the opportunity to have served in this conference. And I honor you as my conference minister for the work you've been able to do here. This award is very important because Dr. Huneman is just such an incredible expression of life and ministry and pastoring. So with great appreciation, I thank all of you. I thank my beloved partner in ministry, Lynn, and I thank all of you who have been able to walk alongside all of us as we seek justice and love and peace. So thank you very much, Tyler.
Thank you, Hector.
Yay, I'm so happy to celebrate you, Hector. Thank you for all the service that you've done, and for Linda being our trailblazer. And I know she really wanted to be here today, but it was still delightful to get to hear her message for you, Hector. So I am a proud member of the UCC because of people like you. So thank you very much. So we have next our presentation for the bylaws. And so the board, it came to the board that the Committee on Ministry would like, they need more members, more than the 14 maximum. They would like to have more because of the work that they're doing. Tyler, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. So with the new manual on ministry, there is a lot of extra work that's required of the Committee on Ministry. And part of that work is really around being more intentional about not just holding our ministers accountable, but also supporting our ministers. And the team has, the Committee on Ministry has separated themselves into two teams. An authorization team is responsible for authorizing new ministers and some other things around authorization, and a support and accountability team. And both of those teams are stretched very thin. And both of those teams have said, 7 members is not enough for us to get the work done that we need to get done. And so they came to the leadership of the team and said, we really need some more members, but we're constrained by the bylaws. And so the leadership came to the board and said, could we change our bylaws so that we can flex up to 20 members? And so that's why they're asking that the bylaws be changed so that we have a minimum for the Committee on Ministry of 14, but that we can flex up to 20. The other thing that happened because of that is that there was some language in the bylaws around regional representation that gave specific numbers that said we have to have a specific number from this region and that region. And with the way that our ministry teams are now flexing from 6 up to 20, having specific numbers no longer made sense. And so the decision was made to change that language so that it speaks to our desire for that regional diversity, but doesn't give numbers, because for each of the teams to be diverse in region will mean a different thing for each of the teams, depending on how many members they have from 6 to 20. The other ministry teams, as a reminder, the other ministry teams already in the bylaws can have as few as 6 or as many as 14 members. Now, I hope that was clear.
That was clear. And I just wanted to add also, last year, I think it was Linda, when we were doing a bylaws change, she said this year we would be recommending an overall haul of the bylaws, or looking at all of the bylaws. But we made the decision that would be work that would be better to do when we're in person, so that we can have more in-depth discussion about it. So next year, hopefully, we will be meeting in person. And so then probably I'm not going to say for sure, but we believe that we will be making a more complete bylaws change. So what we are recommending is, as you can see, we've crossed out what we're no longer going to have, but what we're recommending is this: wider church ministries, local church ministries, educational ministries, which right now they work together, and justice and witness ministry teams shall consist of not less than 6 or more than 14 members. The Committee on Ministry shall consist of not less than 14 or more than 20 members. At least one member of a ministry team shall be from each of the geographical regions of the conference as defined by the Board of Directors, and ministry teams shall be balanced for geographical diversity. And I know listening and how hard the nominating team works at getting that diverse representation from across the conference. And I know it's difficult to say that at least one member from every team, from every region, but they do the best that they can. And I know on the board, there was some question of, do we need to leave that in? But we decided that would be an important piece to have at our discussion in person of the recommendations so that we can dig into that deeper. So anything else you would add, Tyler?
Nope. I wonder if there are any questions. Maybe folks could put questions in the chat or raise your hand if you want to.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I just wanted to comment and thank the board and the conference for this change in the composition of the ministry teams. And I appreciate especially the one on Committee on Ministry, since that's one that I serve on. I'm currently kind of on a sabbatical, shall we say, for a little bit due to housing issues. But I'm really glad to see that we'll have more members because we have a lot of work to do. And it's really wonderful that you all are responding to that need and expanding the membership. So thank you so much.
And one of the things that I remember Becky presenting to the board is that they are really working to implement the new manual on ministry, and there are many new roles and expectations, and it just requires more members. So, and it says here it's a greater involvement.
Yes, that's accurate. So thank you for adding that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pam, you can probably stop sharing now.
Okay.
I did put this in the chat, so if folks need to go and look at it.
The chat, there's a question from Tara in Bridgeport. Are there efforts to ensuring all forms of diversity, gender identity, age, ethnicity beyond region?
So that's actually in a separate clause. The gender identity, age, ethnicity, that's not included in this. It's not in the packet because it wasn't part of the language that's being changed. And then the language that was in this clause was language around geographical diversity that named numbers, and the change, if you'll read, you can see where it has the strikeout and then it has the insert. It shows where the like how we changed that to make it so it doesn't include numbers, but it does still call for geographical diversity. Yeah, I have the same question, Tara, and I found that elsewhere. I was like, well, why aren't we talking about other kinds of diversity? And it's because it's in elsewhere in the bylaws.
Talks overall about the composition of the teams is where that language is. But it's anyway, but we'll look at all of that when we redo the bylaws, hopefully next year. Okay. Well, it is time now for a little report from me, and I put in your packet my report, but I'm going to read part of it to you. And first of all, thank you for putting up with me this year as your moderator, as your lay moderator. I am generally I feel most comfortable working behind the scenes doing work. So being in the front, even though I'm used to being a teacher, it's been a little bit of a challenge for me. However, it's made me grow in a lot of ways. So thank you for putting up with me, and thank you for your patience today as we are doing this meeting together and hopefully building some stronger connections. So here we go. Another very challenging year in the lives of our churches as the pandemic rages on. Too many climate change events to name. We cannot forget the extreme heat event of this summer where so many didn't survive the without air conditioning. A new president was elected since we last gathered. There was an attempted overthrow of our capital and democracy, to name just a few. And yet we supported each other, and it continues to be an important time to be the church. As moderator, I have seen our pastors, conference teams, CPC board, churches, and our national UCC staff respond to our ever-changing needs in this world, and I am so grateful. Just as we said at last year's annual gathering, we are better together. I also believe that the Central Pacific Conference, its members, the staff, the board, and the friendships I have developed have provided me with the living water I've needed to carry on and to serve as moderator. I am proud to say that I'm a member of the United Church of Christ and involved in its ministry. The living water of this conference has come from Tyler Connolly, our conference minister, Debbie Jacober, our office administrator, Natalie and Bob Becker, our Camp Adams administrators and managers, and Gail D as our communications coordinator. Thank you all for going above and beyond to support and lead the CPC. This water has also come from our hardworking board of directors, ministry teams, and working groups. I am in awe of all that you do, and I am so grateful. The work of moderator is made so much easier because of the moderator team or the mod squad. This team includes the Reverend Adam Hange, who is immediate past moderator, the Reverend Vicki Stifter, who is the moderator-elect, and Reverend Tyler Connolly, our conference minister, and me, of course. Reverend Bill Kunitz, our conference treasurer, also joins the Mod Squad meeting at least once a quarter. This team meets at least once a month via Zoom and sometimes quite a bit more to support the needs of the conference, to strategize and direct the work of the board, and support our staff team. We receive regular updates from Tyler, review our financial position with Bill, respond to requests from staff, board members, and teams, and work to set the agenda for our bi-monthly board meetings. It makes it easier to say yes to being moderator-elect when you know that you will be part of a supportive team. I cannot thank Adam Hange enough for his hard work and leadership. In fact, I'm getting kind of teary, Adam, for our conference and for mentoring and supporting me as moderator. I've heard from several wise leaders of our conference that it's easier to be moderator the second time. So I certainly hope that you will consider that sometime in the future. As moderator, I facilitated board meetings, was a member of the board's Reckoning with Our Racist History cohort, and the Revived Personnel Committee. I've also continued to work with the ComHub, or the Communications Ministry Working Group, and the Camp Adams Advisory Team. It was also my privilege to attend the virtual General Synod as an associate delegate, and to also be a proponent for the gender safety and equity resolution we brought to the Assembly. I was able to attend many caucuses to answer questions about the resolution. Tyler represented the CPC very well. For such a small conference, we garnered a lot of attention. As part of the ComHub with Gail D's leadership, we have promoted and led trainings on how to use Basecamp. We have conference-wide Basecamps now for church admins, treasurers, children youth ministries, and worship planners. We have also worked with Tyler on getting CPC's official logo and are close to launching our new and improved website. The Camp Adams Advisory Team has helped Natalie and Bob navigate this time during the pandemic. Many difficult decisions have needed to be made. Luckily for our conference, Camp Adams, unlike many other camps around the country, will survive and hopefully thrive. I've continued working with the CPC budget team, which is changing our budgeting process to align with our goals of nurturing spiritual growth, fostering stronger connections, amplifying our prophetic voice or prophetic witness, and becoming an anti-racist conference. I would also like to thank Ginger Redlinger for her work to continue to get our CPC on the Way digital newsletter out each month. This has allowed Tyler to write his heartfelt and very wise thoughts to each of us who subscribe to the newsletter. And if you aren't subscribed, you should do so. I have been able to submit 9 moderator corners to keep you all updated on our board actions. For me, this adds living water to my life by being inspired and feeling closer connections across the CPC. Thank you to my church family, Lake Oswego, United Church of Christ, and to all the members of our conference who have been a part of the living water of the United Church of Christ, the Central Pacific Conference, and the communities we serve. Thank you. May we continue to work to make this a just world for all. I want to also, before I am finished, I want to share my screen and encourage you, if you, I know it's long, but in my report, I have the letter, but I've listed, I'm sure it's not all of the board actions and accomplishments, but most of them. So as we go through here, I went through our minutes and tried to make sure to highlight certain things like the technology grants, the disasters ministry group that got going, the Reckoning with Racist group. So one of the decisions we made was to continue having every other year, that we were going to have a virtual gathering this year, but then we're going to go to in-person and then virtual, because it's nice to be able to include more people in the virtual gatherings also. So we'll have a mix. We voted on that. So here is a list, and I won't read them all because it will take too long. So these are, you can see the board has done a lot of work representing the conference. And then we go to our ministry team accomplishments. So all of the ministry teams have highlighted different things that they have been involved in this year. So we have the Committee on Ministry, and then we have our Justice and Witness Ministry Year Report. They have a lot of different things that they've been working on this year in supporting our conference, including a big one was taking our resolution to national setting, and it passed, which was great. We have our local church local church ministry and education ministry teams, and as many of you know, a big piece of our getting us connected were all the swap meets that happened. And then we have Steve Gillian was our wider church ministry teams, and they have a whole list of things that they worked on and participated in. Then I also included our working group so that you can see what has the communication ministry working group been doing, and the disaster working group also. And I did not include the Friends of the Fund Development Team, because Bill will cover that in his report. And is there one more working group that I have? Oh, the Camp Adams working group. Natalie will talk a little bit about that. So that's what's included in my report. And of course, it is with deep gratitude. This is your board for this year, and I am very grateful to have been a part of it for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And I will continue next year. So thank you for your support. So I'd like to introduce Bill Kunitz, our amazing treasurer. Thank you so much, Bill, for everything that you have done for us and continue to.
Thank you so much, Pam. I just want to say how much I appreciate your leadership over the last year or so, especially last year as moderator. You're a great colleague, and I've come to understand my work and all the work we do on the board as really a team sport. We don't work alone, and so as treasurer, I'm part of a team, and I have to acknowledge Debbie Jacober, who is my rock. Upon this conference, I will build my rock, my Debbie Jacober. She's been an extraordinary ally and helps explain things to me that just went right over my head. So yeah, my name is Bill Kunitz. I've been treasurer of the conference now for the past 3 years. And what I'm going to try to do this morning is assume that in your packets, you've had an opportunity to at least glance at the columns of numbers that accompanied the annual budget proposal that we're going to be voting on later this morning. And just provide some highlights for you. We obviously want to answer any questions that you may have, either in chat today or anytime during the year. You know, you need to feel free to be in touch with me or any of us on the board if you have questions or concerns about our financial stewardship. May not have all the answers at my fingertips, but those that we do will respond immediately. And if we don't have them, we'll get back to you. So Gail, can I ask you to throw up a little slideshow? There we go, that I've tried to provide for our gathering this morning. Again, I'm not going to be going through the budget line item by line item. I was advised by my predecessor, Gene, not to do that. That will sort of glaze people over as their eyes. But I'm just going to try to hit some of the highlights. But before I talk about our budget for 2022, I'd like to provide a look back over our budget for 2021 and how our expectations for income and expenses this year were really framed by this continuing pandemic that we're in. We had really no understanding of what we were going to be experiencing last year in 2020. And so we were cautious as we approached 2021 with our understanding of how we were going to fund our ministry and what our expenses would be. Gail, could you move to the next slide, please? There we go. So in 2020, I'm really, sort of thrilled to report that we had a very positive income to expense, despite the pandemic and maybe even because of the pandemic. And that lifted our sights as we began to develop this current year's budget that we're living into now. We established very conservative goals last year and assumed that limited spending would probably continue with regard to travel. But thanks to the resilience and the commitment of our congregations, support continued to flow into the conference treasury, and the hard work of Debbie Jacober landed us last year, as you may recall, one of those coveted PPP loans in order to allow us to continue our operations and provide salaries for our employees. And then in this year, that loan, like many others of yours who you may have had a PPP loan, was forgiven. That added an additional cushion to our budget for 2021, along with the lower expenses that we're experiencing now, mainly due to travel. And some of the ministry teams are not spending, at least up to this point, their full allotment of funds. Well, it gave us an opportunity, as Pam inferred in her report, to create a technology grant program. We learned that many of our congregations last year struggled with technology, just not having access to the equipment that they needed or the personnel that they needed. And we were pleased because of the saving and the additional income, unexpected income we received last year, to be able to provide that grant program. We learned a lot. It was not perfect. And I hope that maybe if we ever do that again, we will learn from those experiences. So as we approach the end of 2021, I'm expecting that we will have indeed a balanced budget. I am a little nervous about OCWM and our per capita. I am expecting that we will come in close. I've talked to a few treasurers who are anticipating that they're going to be sending in their per capita goals, as well as their OCWM goals, as well as their per capita for this year. And the Friends of the Conference that Pam mentioned has also provided with increased income that is a great benefit to the conference. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So the 2022 budget process, as in years past, was with a small financial management working group that Pam Rossio, our moderator, called together back in July, actually. And we began to work on anticipating what our 2022 budget would be based on our historical experience. We had sessions in July at the Old Interchurch Center and in August. And that final proposal that we submitted to the board for the 2022 budget was approved unanimously on August 19th. In the process of doing this budget proposal, we dissected our 2021 budget, the current year, to see how we were spending money on the priorities of the conference. You've heard them mentioned several times already: foster stronger congregations, nurture spiritual growth, amplify our prophetic voice, and become an anti-racist conference. We spent the time on several sessions going through the entire budget in terms of income and mostly expense to see how we were living into those priorities, and made the decision early on with the board approval on August 19th that this coming year would be an opportunity for all of our committees, our ministry teams, our staff people to see and monitor more closely how we were living into those 4 priorities. So let's look at the big picture for 2022, Gail. The big picture for 2022 has a balanced budget for your consideration, taking in $368,000 and spending $368,000, all based on calculated and historical assumptions of what is realistic for us to expect to receive from our churches, individuals, our investments, our lease payments, our earmarked funds, as well as what is anticipated for us to spend on our programs, our personnel, and our covenanted priorities. As I noted earlier, the single largest line income is for our church's wider mission, which does not seem to be as dependable as it has been in years past, many years past, as a matter of fact. This year, we have again temporarily reduced our expectations for OCWM from our member churches by $5,000 over this year's budgeted goal. I say temporary because the board and Tyler and I plan to launch a program of OCWM awareness among our churches with the hope of invigorating support and gifted support for years to come. So next year, even though we've lowered our expectation for OCWM, we fully anticipate that it will be a year of growing understanding, of building and deepening our covenantal ties that inform the totality of our ministry for the United Church of Christ. And yet, even as we reduce our OCWM income, we are bold to increase our goal for Friends of the Conference Fund, the FOC that you see starred there. With an annual goal that has grown from $10,000 a few years ago to $20,000 in recent years, and from approximately only 43 donors 3 years ago to well over 100 thus far in 2021. We feel confident that we can increase our budgeted income for this fund from $20,000 to $25,000 for next year. As I mentioned, we will continue to monitor our expense bottom line. It will remain much the same as it was in 2021, with the exception of reallocation of some funds from the Justice Witness Ministry team and a few others to include that grant program that Pam mentioned in her report, as well as moving some $10,000 that were sitting in our endowment, remaining unspent, earmarked funds to support conference efforts to live more fully into our anti-racism priority. Completely in compliance with the goal of those earmarked funds, we are finally putting them to really good use. One other big picture element of our expenses for 2022 include moving Gail D., the conference position, to a part-time position from a contracted services role. Gail's value was proven last year, and we see great things in the future for our partnership with Gail, and increasing all personnel compensation in the conference for the staff by a modest 3% for a cost of living adjustment. And finally, in light of the success that we've realized from our far-flung conference via the use of technology and increased participation that we've experienced as a result, we've slightly reduced our travel expenses for both the ministry teams, the committees, as well as the conference minister for 2022, acknowledging that we're not going to be slacking off on our programs, but we're going to be doing them in a way that we think is providing higher levels of participation. Next slide, please. So here's the projected income for 2022. Our church's wider mission, we're reducing that goal from 215 to 210 to what we think more accurately will reflect the potential of our giving churches. Per capita is a conservative goal of $67,000. That's down from $70,000 that we had this year, but that's a sort of a fluid number. We just wanted to be conservative and not overestimate our income. The Friends of CPC, we're going to increase that goal from $20,000 to $25,000. And let me just pause here for a second, because Pam mentioned that this special working group, the development working group, deserves a little bit of highlighting. They've been working for almost 2.5 years now to sort of recreate an assumption and an understanding of how we can be individual stewards to the work and ministry of the conference here in the Central Pacific. A small group of Adam Hange, Larry Clausen from the Hillsborough Church, John Aney from Lake Oswego, Jessica Shine, Tyler, and me have essentially worked on a monthly basis. We meet every month to consider systems and strategies to not only enhance our relationships with you as donors, but to live more fully into the opportunities that we have to serve the church. So I'm thankful for all of you, and hopefully there'll be some additional people from around the conference who would like to join us in that. We're going to continue now with our projected income. We're going to assume the dedicated draw from our endowment funds at 4%, which was set a number of years ago by the board. We're going to continue to draw on the Gresham property income. The Astoria Church has essentially gone out of business, and through a roundabout way has gifted the sale of its building to the conference, and we're receiving about $10,500 income from the mortgage payments that are now being directed to the Central Pacific Conference, at the end of which there will be a balloon payoff of the full value of that church, but that's a number of years down the line. But in the meantime, we decided to include that $10,500 for our operations next year. And then, as I mentioned, the anti-racism program increase of $10,000 from unused earmarked funds that were just sitting in our endowment now are finally going to be put to wonderful use by helping us develop some more robust anti-racism programs. Next slide, please. So here's, because people don't like columns of numbers, I tried to do a little bit of a pie chart here. Here is a quick rundown of our projected expenses for 2022. The largest piece of the pie of our program is the OCWM dollars that we send on to the national church. That's the big gray slice there. And we are proud of the fact that the Central Pacific Conference is among the highest percentages of all conferences nationally to our church's wider mission. An admirable 25% of everything that we collect, we send on to the national church. And the pieces of the pie shown here, beginning with the gold slice on the bottom, is the Committee on Ministry, the Justice Witness Ministry team, the wider church ministry team. The local church and the educational ministry teams are the blue and the pink slices. And finally, the earmarked funds that will be directed to the anti-racism activities is the dark slice near the top of this pie. When I just realized that I accidentally left off another piece of the pie representing that $3,000 that we've taken from some of the Justice Witness budget to help create that $3,000 grant program that local churches can apply for to implement Justice Witness programs in their areas. So I apologize for that oversight. Next slide, please. And here are our personnel expenses. As with most congregations and any nonprofit, a significant portion of our expenditures rests with the cost of providing exemplary leadership for our organization. And the CPC is no exception. The largest piece of the pie there is for the compensation and benefit package of our conference minister, followed by our 40+ year administrator, Debbie Jacober. And the next two slices represent compensation for our communications coordinator, Gail D., and the office technology expenses. And then wrapping things up, our slices representing board and committee travel and the reduced travel budget in 2022 for the conference minister. Next slide, please. So here's one of my favorite parts of this program is celebrating our OCWM covenant congregation by congregation. We had 37 of our churches out of 43 provide OCWM support that came into the conference and goes on to the national church. You can see, I'm not going to read all of these churches here, but these are churches that we are so grateful to have in partnership with us. And then the next slide, please, Gail, these are the shining stars. These are the five congregations for 2020. These are the congregations that not only have supported OCWM in their own exemplary way, but who have responded positively to all of the annual appeals from the United Church of Christ that include One Great Hour Sharing, Neighbors in Need, Strengthen the Church Offering, and Veterans of the Cross, the Pension Board Christmas Fund. Congratulations and thanks to all of you for your leadership. And finally, Gail, the final slide. So thank you once again for your generosity and your commitment. Thanks to you, the Central Pacific Conference looks forward to a fulfilling and a faithful year ahead as we focused on our shared priorities. So on behalf of the Board of Directors and each member congregation, I want you to know our sincere gratitude for your time and attention. And that's about it. As I said, much more of a detail is available in your packets, and we stand ready to try to answer any questions you may have or acknowledge your comments. But before I close, I couldn't resist reaching out to you just once more to remind you that these working groups of the Central Pacific Conference Development Team really could benefit for some volunteers to help us with our outreach for the Friends of the Conference program. We meet currently monthly, but I'm not sure that's going to continue into the new year. We'll let the team decide how often they're going to meet on Zoom. and the finance working group. Those of you who really like numbers and want to be in on with the in crowd and trying to determine how we can best steward our resources, I would encourage you to let us know and join us in the finance working group. So thank you very much. That's a quick run through, and I hope that it was satisfying and meaningful to you all. I stand ready to try to answer any questions you may have, or we'll look for support from Tyler and Pam and Adam to help me along with things that I may not understand completely. So thank you.
Bill, that was a fabulous report. We are so lucky to have you as our treasurer, and I'm glad that I'm in the in crowd and got to be part of the budget. I didn't know I was on the in crowd.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, and others can be too.
Yes, and especially on the fund development, we can always use your help.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to we got to meet in person on the budget committee. That was very exciting to be in person with you. So thank you, Bill, and you did a great job. We are really happy to show you one of what Bill had also mentioned is the Justice and Witness grants. And so Beth Pfeiffer has made a speak out to show. So we're going to show that now.
Hi, this is Beth Pfeiffer, the Justice and Witness co-chair for this year. And I just wanted to let you know that Justice and Witness will now offer its grants again this coming year. So they are back. So please look in the way and watch for the applications for those grants. So we are offering matching grants to congregations, and we're looking for to see what Justice Witness work you're doing in your church or with another church, local churches, or with the conference. So think about those projects that you've been wanting to do and fill out an application, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks.
Yeah, and I want to encourage, if any of you at your churches or if you have something that you want to speak out about, there is a link on our website. You can still make speak outs. We might just keep that open for a while because we can always add them to our new and improved website or even our old one to share with each other and with your congregation. So feel free, if you have something that's going on at your local church or something that you're passionate about, make a speak out as long as it's appropriate. We will be happy to show it. So now we're going to have, we're going to show you a video that was made by a member of my church, Sarah Shively, and it is the living water of Camp Adams. And when we had our taller and smaller reunion this summer where we got back together, Sarah is an amazing photographer and an editor, and she and her partner Marilis, and so Sarah put this video together, and I thought that you all needed to see it. So here we go. Oh, that brings back amazing memories for me. One of my favorite places. Yesterday, I was getting ready for some things, and my daughter saw Adam Hange's Living Water video with the swimming hole, and she just about, what? Wait, that's my favorite place. I want to go there more. So that water, that place, I'm just so grateful that we have Camp Adams. And so now I want to introduce or welcome, of course you all know, Natalie Becker. And Natalie, I'm so glad that you're here and keeping our camp program strong during this pandemic. Well, it has been kind of small during the pandemic, but strong. So thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Pam. It is so nice to be gathered with all of you today. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of the PowerPoint presentation, I want to especially thank Pam for all of her leadership at various levels of the conference, and most particularly and especially out at Camp Adams. It's really hard to put into words how much she has given to this place and space over the last many years, but her energy is boundless, and this type of ministry requires that. So thank you, Pam. I also want to thank you for introducing me today with that video, because some of my very favorite people in the whole wide world were in that video. And I realized that in these forums, I rarely lift up our resident summer staff, the young people who come to camp and spend many weeks working very, very hard for very little money to make all of this magic happen. They had the green shirts on that said sustain in the video. And this summer we had a very small but mighty group. Max Hammond was one of our volunteers who came out for quite a few days, but our other paid volunteers this year were Becca Ruwinski and Nellie Puder, and then my daughter Ruby Becker. And they were the rocks upon which all of us depended to pull this off this summer. So thank you for including them in that video. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So I am here today to present to all of you the proposed 2022 budget for Camp Adams, brought forward upon the recommendation of the Central Pacific Conference Board of Directors. And this is kind of a fun picture here. This took place at one of our reunions, and I thought it was appropriate as the living water is being passed from camper to camper behind their backs in a pretty fun activity. So before I get into the 2022 budget, I think it's important context to note that since May of 2020, Camp Adams has been operating under a financial conservancy strategy. And this strategy was developed by our wonderful Camp Adams Advisory Committee, which consists of Bruce Bishop, David Avison, Mike Grogan, Pam Rossio, Tyler, and Bob, and myself. And we went to the board and recommended that as of May 2020, we approach the budget and our expenses in a very conservative manner to address the loss of the traditional revenue streams due to the pandemic. And so we attempted to minimize expenditures as much as possible. When I joined the annual gathering last year at this time to present the 2021 budget, it was a continuation of that particular approach, the financial conservancy strategy, and it was a deficit budget of nearly $53,000. Due to the efficacy of the vaccines and the decline in the numbers of people infected in the spring months of this year in 2021, we decided that it was important for us to go ahead and reopen camp in a really alternative way, in a limited way, to offer a slate of alternative programming through the summer months. And here are some of the different types of opportunities that we engaged in. It was wonderful to have people back on site. We had 12 families who came out and stayed in a cabin for a couple of nights. We opened camp to guests over 2 consecutive Sundays in July, and we had 80+ people come out over those two Sundays. It was a reunion of sorts. We had former staff and campers, people from many, many moons ago, people that had been to Camp Adams as campers for the Oregon Outdoor School program all came back. We had 5 congregations come on out to camp to conduct their Sunday worship services. Lake Oswego and the Dalles came out and helped Bob and I with some service projects. And then we had 87 campers come back to reunite with those that they had attended camp with in 2019 for day-long Saturday camps. So all of these alternative programming opportunities did create unexpected or unbudgeted expenses. We were able to cover almost all of those expenses through the participation fees that we charged for those participants. So all in all, it was a wash. Looking ahead through the end of this year, the year of 2021, I'm happy to report that I do think the deficit is going to be smaller than we had initially projected last year at this time. Looks like we're going to be running about a $46,000 deficit. I'm also really happy to tell all of you that the Camp Adams Advisory Committee has come up with a 4-pronged approach to covering this deficit that we foresee will be successful in doing so. So the first pot of unexpected income has come from timber sales from our forest management practices. We had a fair amount of downed timber, downed trees due to the wind and ice storms in 2021. That, along with removing some hazard trees and our expected intended work in our working forest, will go quite a ways in covering that projected deficit. We also have some money left over from a grant we received from the Gray Family Foundation that can be applied to a portion of my salary at the end of the year. And then we will engage in a little year-end fundraising as well. I wanted to lift up this bullet point, the payroll protection program, and thank the board of directors of the Central Pacific Conference. At the beginning of this year, 2021, they voted to take a portion of the money that had been loaned to them and then forgiven through the payroll protection program, and to put it in the coffers of Camp Adams to help us meet our salary requirements for the year 2020. At that point, this happened late in the year 2020, we only needed about $5,000 of that. So the rest was put into reserves, and we will pull that out of reserves this year to help us balance the budget. So looking ahead to the main event here, the proposed 2022 budget, I am happy to say that this budget ends the financial conservancy strategy and anticipates resuming on-site programming at Camp Adams in the year 2022. As such, we looked back historically, particularly at the 2019 budget, which was the budget we used to run our operations and our programming in 2019 when we last had a full slate of programming on site. We adjusted it for the 2022 year, and we are presenting it to all of you as a balanced budget. Here are our anticipated income streams for 2022. A lot of them will look very familiar from previous years. Our youth summer camp programming, our congregational retreats, the annual 5% draw from the Camp Adams Forest Conservation Endowment, our forest management activities in our working forest, some fundraising gifts and miscellaneous, for a total projected income of $220,000. On this slide, I just wanted to give you the broad categories of the types of expenses that are involved in running, operating camp and conducting the programming on site. And we have tooled those for the coming year to match our income streams. Of course, resuming overnight summer youth camp programming and other on-site programming at Camp Adams will require some changes. Given the pandemic, given the uncertainty as we emerge from one phase into a new, our community is going to have to engage in important decision-making and planning processes, and we will have to come to terms with some change and transition. However, I feel very confident that we will be able to navigate this uncertainty, these changes and transitions, and make solid, good, healthy decisions for our community, because all of these decisions will happen within the context of a vibrant ministry, and most importantly, an outdoor ministry that is the ministry of the CPC. I wanted to end with something that touched me and maybe will help all of you kind of understand why I love my job so much. This on this slide is a letter that was written by our senior high campers. And I know it's probably a little bit difficult to read, but one of their activities that they engaged in when they were out at camp for their reunion this summer, and they were the only group that came out overnight. So they were here for 24 hours. They slept outside, or I should say we slept outside, we ate outside. And it was really a very special 24 hours. But they were asked to write letters to future campers to sort of give future campers an insight into what Camp Adams was all about. And I'll just read through this. I'm gonna make it so I can see it. There we go. Dear future camper, at Camp Adams, anything you want to be is great. Don't be afraid to be who you are. If you're having a bad day at camp, let yourself feel that. And remember, the staff and counselors are there for you. This one's really hard to read, but it says, savor Bob's food. Don't limit yourself by what you do well, just do it. People don't care if you're popular in normal society. Talk to that person, play that group game. And finally, treasure the space. It's been here longer than you, and it'll be here after you're gone. Be a steward of camp. So thank you one and all for allowing me to continue to be your co-director of outdoor ministries, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have about the proposed budget.
I'm just looking at, I haven't seen any questions, just thank you, praise God. We are so lucky to have that amazing place.
Amen.
Yeah, a few, wow, thank you, Natalie and Bob from David Randall Bodman, and thank you, the advisory board, and Natalie and Bob. Thank you, Natalie. We are so blessed by your leadership and love and care for the land from Vicky. From Mike Grogan, the Beckers are incredible. I second that, Mike. Amy Harden says, thanks, Natalie, for all your hard work in this strange time. Strange for sure. I am from Tyler. I love UCC camp spaces. They heal this queer kid's soul. Yes, thank you, Tyler. Adam Hand, so great. Our youth have this place, and thank you for making decisions with the next 7 generations in mind. Star says thank you. Jean Avison would love to see the Dear Future Camper posted on the camp website. We just probably have to go over the yellow. Thank you, Natalie. David, or that was from Carl Van Slyke, from David. Thank you so much. Particularly appreciate the specific invite to clergy for a couple of retreat days. The blackberries this year were amazing. And
it was great to see you out, David. I really enjoyed our time together. Thanks for coming out.
Yes. So I think we're back.
Yeah.
So next up, we get to find out who Justice and Witness has awarded their Justice and Witness Awards to. So we are very lucky to have Beth Pfeiffer from Eugene, who is co-chair of Justice and Witness, and she's going to be presenting the awards. So glad to have you here, Beth, with us.
Thank you. So thanks so much for having me, and I am speaking to you on behalf of the CPC Justice and Witness Ministry team. Every year, our team receives nominations from you, the conference, to recognize leaders in our community who give themselves in service to God's call for peace and justice. There are so many people who could be recognized within our conference. This year, we have 2 awards. We want to take a moment to recognize 2 people who have significantly contributed to Justice and Witness ministries within the Central Pacific Conference and the United Church of Christ in general. So we have 2 awards that we're offering this year, and one is for lifetime service, and the other is for up and coming people who are working in justice and witness. So our first award, we selected Dr. Patricia Pat Rumor. And I don't believe Pat is here today. So
I think she's in France.
That's what I heard. I talked to Linda yesterday, and Linda Jaramillo was the one who was nominated Pat. And so I just wanted to share some of the things that Linda had shared about Pat. There's so many things that were on her nomination, but these are a few that I pulled off. Pat has been engaged in numerous projects focused on racial, economic, immigrant, and gender justice. Pat has an incredible skill for organizing people by providing a model of what it means to step up and step out in voice and action. Pat is a courageous and valiant and tireless advocate in many settings of the UCC across faith partnerships and through communities. There is no barrier that Pat won't challenge to make the connection needed in strength, to strengthen the movement for justice that is her life's work. And she's been a member of the Ainsworth Church for 25 years. So I wanted to share also some of the actions in terms of that she's been instrumental in expanding the significant commitment of being a sanctuary church to becoming an immigrant welcoming congregation. Her leadership in Justice Commission opened connections to the wider UCC networks and ecumenical and interfaith community partnership in the conference and throughout the region. Pat was the catalyst that introduced the Jubilee movement for international debt relief to the Central Pacific Conference. And in her role as the area secretary, Pat also actively participated in the UCC Western Hispanic Ministry Strategy Team. She was all among the group of Ainsworth members who launched the Sacred Conversations toward ending racism at Ainsworth. Their commitment and confession has launched difficult but critical conversations. So if we could, I know she's not here, but if we could all do some in terms of clapping or any reactions you want to put up for Dr. Coomer, that would be awesome. So to recognize her. So our second nominee or
Beth,
Pat's here.
She just joined.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I think we need to spotlight her.
Yes, if you.
We just said all kinds of wonderful things about you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Justice and Witness Award.
Right. Well, I'm honored and I'm very appreciative. Mostly, it's been a real privilege to be able to do the work, particularly Tyler, when you and I met down at the border, gosh, in 2015. And that changed my life. I'm just so glad that we can continue to work together, particularly around the immigrant welcoming congregations, and invite every congregation to become involved. There are just many ways that you can do that. So thank you.
I'm so glad you were able to join us from France. This is awesome.
I know. I'm struggling between my Spanish and my French. So merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias.
Oh, well, thank you for all your work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I was just going to go and talk about our second award, and that is the Up and Coming Award. And so our committee selected Jennifer Butler, the senior pastor in Corvallis. So Mike Huntington was described, Reverend Butler, as he described that there was 23 people in Corvallis who had been pushed off property there, and then they came to the church, and in a couple days, Reverend Butler put up a banner that said, "How can we worship a homeless man on Sunday and then ignore him on Monday?" She, under her leadership, our church did allow those 23 people to set up tents in our forested area, and has led by example to care for the marginalized, particularly the unhoused members of our community. So some of the actions: she worked with neighbors, law enforcement, city coding, and health. She handled complaints and open threats at meetings with a Blom. She created a safe camp, and she encouraged leaders from other churches and nonprofit organizations to create an organization called Safe Place, which would promote safe temporary housing for the unhoused across the Corvallis community. 2 years later, a dream realized, 20 mini houses on church property, and other churches in the area now have mini houses for 20 to 40 individuals. So if you could all join me in thanking Reverend Butler. And I don't know if Reverend Butler would like to say some words.
I don't think Jen is in the house. She was here earlier, but I don't see her.
Well, just wanted to thank everyone within the conference as well, just in terms of how much work has been done in local churches and working towards making this a just world and planet. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth, for all your work and your leadership on behalf of the conference and the board. And you're a great worker and representative for Justice and Witness. Thank you. So next on our schedule, we are lucky to have the Reverend Kathy Abend, who is going to be making a report for the Idaho Association. So hopefully she is still with us.
I'm right here.
Yay! We'll spotlight you, Kathy.
Oh, that's just what I need. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh. We're
Well,
so
thank
glad
you.
We're so glad to have you here. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. I love the way this meeting is flowing so smoothly. I really like what you said and that Tyler had said about this is about connection, not perfection. And I feel that and so that's what I kind of wanted to tell you about in Idaho. Number one, I feel a growing connection from all of our little churches over here in Idaho. That's one of the gifts of COVID is that we've had to make an intentional efforts to get together. And so I've learned so much about our fellow churches over here, and we're some very bright spots in Idaho. We have some healthy congregations. And I want to just tell you a little bit about some of these healthy congregations and give a shout out to their pastors. So we have two relatively new pastors in our area over here in the Treasure Valley. And at Boise First UCC, Rob Tullock is doing a grand job leading that congregation. He was installed just a few weeks ago. And some of the fun things that he's been doing, they're going to be holding an inclusive community training program, which is getting really good response, something so necessary. And another fun thing, Boise First and Right Church, the one that I'm a pastor of, co-hosted a booth at Pride, and we had a lot of fun over at Pride. And that was just 2 weeks ago, or maybe. So over at Mountain Home, we have a new pastor, Paul Van Antwerp, coming in from Minnesota. And if you haven't met him yet, he's a kick in the pants. So he's having a lot of fun learning the congregation and learning to love a whole new they might be a little different than he is, and what an exercise, and what it's beautiful to watch him learn how to love people who are maybe a little different than he is. And I love watching that happen. In Pocatello, Star Ridden, who I think is here today with us, is doing a great job leading that congregation through COVID and all of its and everything we've gone through. Out in Nampa, Laura Creech is a layperson leading that congregation, and she wants to tell you that they're doing well. They just put a new rock sign out in the parking lot, and because they're a small congregation, they are able to still meet in person. And it's very important to them that they are able to stay connected in that way. Our churches are probably like the Oregon churches. We have First Church that's gone back to online, and we have Mountain Home and Right Church that is still, very much in-person congregations with masks. And so we're all over the board with that, but we're sort of in a hot spot for COVID. Up in McCall, they have an interim pastor, Jeff Taylor, who I have not met yet, so I'm not going to speak out of turn here and tell too much about it, but I know that McCall is happy to have him. Out in New Plymouth, Eric Klein, who is an active layperson there, wants to spread the word that they're very grateful for all the help that they've been receiving from the conference. They are still looking for a settled pastor, so please, if you can help them in any way, shape, or form, they are filling the pulpit with lay people and guest ministers and doing okay. So Right Church, that's the one I'm a part of. We're having a good time over here. Some of the fun things that we've done, we had a family camp up at Pilgrim Cove where 45 of our members and our children and grandchildren went up for a weekend and had a great time. I also was able to manage a confirmation class this summer in person. We had a little window of opportunity there, and we had 6 high school youth go through the program. And it was good for my soul to be able to talk to young people and hear their passion for still learning how to follow Christ into this world. And that was good for me, and I hope good for them too. I also I just announced to our congregation that I will be retiring on November 7th. So this will probably be the last time that I'm with you. So put in a good word for Right Church. What a healthy, vibrant, inclusive congregation we have over here in Boise. And I hope that they're able to find a new settled pastor very soon. So I checked with Pilgrim Cove, and I see, maybe there's going to be something tomorrow or on Monday about camps, but I want to include them because within the Idaho Association, we have our 2 nonprofits. We have Pilgrim Cove and the low-income housing called High Horizons. So in talking to Tyler this morning, I first reached him with his hands deep into a toilet, trying to fix it, and then he called me back to tell me that they've had a relatively successful summer, and they are still open and pretty much booked through next summer. They will stay open in the winter. We're not booked through the winter, but next summer is pretty much booked already. And they're making it through some great financial gifts that have been shared with them. And in November, they'll be doing some strategic planning about how to move forward into the future. But Jeremy Force is the new camp manager there, and he's generally looking says the camp is in a positive place. So our other nonprofit is High Horizons. We have 3 low-income apartment complexes, 2 in Boise and 1 in Nampa. And real estate is good. They are looking to increase our low-income housing units into maybe another one somewhere in the Treasure Valley. So that is a fun thing to be a part of as well. So overall, we over here in Idaho are holding up the UCC name and proud to have our banners flying high, and happy to be a part of this conference. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak for our pastors, and I hope I didn't forget anybody, but yeah, I think that's it from Idaho.
Thank you, Kathy, and congratulations on your retirement. You have been such a gift to the conference and to Idaho, and you're going to be so missed. But hopefully you just stay involved in the ministry and spreading your joy and love to so many. So thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for representing Idaho so well. We appreciate it greatly. And there's some amazing, Adam says, blessings to your retirement and the next chapter for Right Congregational. Kathy, God is faithful. Thank you for sharing about God's work in the Idaho Association. And Tyler, let's see, Tyler had one on here or someplace, and now I've missed it. But you'll have to go through and read what was said, but you're greatly appreciated. Thank you, and thank you for sharing your message.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Blessings to the conference.
So next on our agenda are some actions. So we will do some voting now, but first we'll call up Bill, call you back in case there are any questions before we take the vote. So are there any further questions, or Bill, did you receive any texts or questions?
No.
Because you did such a great job presenting the budget. So if there aren't any more questions, then Gail, if you would go ahead and put the poll up. So all of the motions come from committee, so it's not requiring a second. So right now we are voting to approve the budget, and
Well, while people are voting, I have one big omission from my report, Pam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I forgot to mention that Natalie Becker was part of the Friends of the Conference development team. And I really am sorry for neglecting that, because she provides such a great contribution to our work. So remember Natalie Becker. And I'm sorry, Natalie, that I left off your name.
She's unforgettable.
She is. She is. It was nice to be able to work together with the Camp Adams and the conference on beginning to do some shared understanding of fundraising, which I think is important as we go forward.
At this point, we have 98%, so we have 60 of the 61 people that have voted. All have said yes, one has abstained. What do you have so far, Jean, on your voting?
I received 2 yes votes.
Okay, so as of right now, we have 62 yeses. So I would say pretty confidently our budget is approved by our assembly. we need to vote to approve the 2022 budget for Camp Adams. Are there any, does anybody have any further questions for Natalie? Or Natalie, did you receive any?
I did not.
So at this point, we have 54 that have voted yes, and 1 has abstained. And I did see a message that a person is worried about not being able to put a D in front of their name. Don't worry, you can vote. If you're a delegate, just vote. Don't worry if you are not renamed. Because we don't, did you get any yeses?
I did actually much more this time. I feel like I should be giving away some Ginsu knives or something. And, 7 votes yes.
7 votes yes. So it looks like, what do we have? 64 yeses and 1 abstention. So the Camp Adams budget is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Natalie.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. I've said this many times, but it bears repeating. There's a very special relationship between this conference and its outdoor ministry sites. So thank you.
So before I share my screen, I texted my mom this morning and I said, I know that I'm already wearing silver and red embroidery, but do you think a silver tie is too much for a daytime meeting? And my dad texted back and said, it matches your hair. Always count on Dad. Can you all see that? Central, okay.
Yes.
So I wanted to start by just reminding us, we are the United Church of Christ in Southern Washington, Oregon, and Southern Idaho. And we are called to foster stronger connections, nurture spiritual growth, amplify our prophetic voice, and become an anti-racist conference. We start each of our staff meetings with this statement, and with these mission priorities. We start each of our board meetings with this statement, these mission priorities. When we looked at our budget this year, we budgeted to these mission priorities. These were mission priorities that you lifted up in the Starling Project, and we as staff and board seek to live into the call that God has for our lives. Just a little bit of numbers to talk about this moment that we're living in. At last year's meeting, I reported that in 2019 and 2020, I had driven 2,224 miles. And this year, I've almost doubled the number of miles that I've driven. Now, conference ministers have been known, if Hector's still here, he might be able to tell you that conference ministers can drive 20 or 30,000 miles in a year, particularly here in the West. So we are not anywhere near where we once were. I also have my very first out of conference business trip since January of 2020 coming up next week. And I have one other out of conference trip. Those are both a board meeting and a Council of Conference Ministers meeting. I think this is what the new normal looks like. And I have a photo here of myself in a mask, because I think that we are beginning to live into what the world is going to look like into the future. I think we are going to begin to move into being together more often in person. And I also think that the things we've learned from the pandemic will continue. I also want to say that most of my travel has been to Idaho. And I have visited the churches in Idaho quite a bit during the time that I have been conference minister, especially considering that I spent 5.5 months in this apartment from March to July of 2020. And I just recently made my first trip to Vancouver to preach at our church in Vancouver last week, and down to Medford and Ashland. And it was so good to be able to be with you all in Medford and Ashland. I'm going to be in Medford again in October, and but I preached at Ashland, and it really is good to be in person at the same time while we're living in this environment of virtual. We had some milestones this year, and we had some good milestones this year. We've already heard about this. The Reverend Paul Van Antwerp was called to Mountain Home. The Reverend Eric Elness was called to First Congregational, and the Reverend Emma Brewer Wallen, oops, I misspelled her name, Brewer Wallen, was ordained to the Southern New England Conference. And those were exciting things that happened this year. We also had some sadder, the Astoria UCC, which has not really been meeting for quite a while, but they finally officially closed this year in January of 2021. And Heart to Soul Spiritual Project completed their experiment in January of 2021. And their ministry continues through Camp Adams and through the money that they gave to the Antiracist Project, and also to the things that were learned by their pastor, Diane Rodriguez, and by the people who attended and were part of that experiment. And then also we lost our beloved colleague, the Reverend Don Frew. And I know he's always present with us at these kinds of events because he was always at events. He would have been at Emma's ordination, and he always made sure he was at wider church things. I put a picture of Rob's dog Lexi because she also died in October. That's my husband's dog who lived with him in St. Louis. And so that was a personal milestone. Bill, we have our first Chisholm organization. You said how much you appreciate the Council for Health and Human Services Ministries in the United Church of Christ. In your report, we finally have a Chisholm organization in the Central Pacific Conference with Clay Street Table. Clay Street Table was started as a joint ministry with the Central Pacific Conference, United Church of Christ, and St. Stephen's in Episcopal in Portland. And this year they grew up and formed their own 501c3, and as part of that, it was really important to Paul Davis that one of the first things they do was to join Chisholm and become part of the wider United Church of Christ. And so Reverend Paul, who is the gathering pastor and executive director, made sure that that happened. So focusing on our 4 ministry priorities: fostering stronger connections. This has been a year of learning even better how to be together when we're not in person. And we have been able to do so many things together. Our clergy circle in Portland opened itself up and now includes occasionally minister from Germany and people from Idaho and Southern Oregon. And we had one of our best attended ecclesiastical councils ever with our ecclesiastical council for Emma Brewer Wallen. And thank you to all of you who attended that and were present for that. It's been great to be able to be in our all conference worship services and to be present across the conference and around the country for Don Frew's memorial service and for ordinations and installations. all of these different ways. And as you heard Pam say, the board has decided that on the years when we have General Synod, we will have online gatherings like we're having this year. And on the years when we don't have General Synod, we'll meet in person. And so that we can continue to be accessible to people across the conference who don't have maybe the funds or the ability to travel. Nurturing spiritual growth. I've been so grateful for local church ministries for the swap meets that they have created and for all of the opportunities that we've had for earth justice and disaster preparedness and for healthcare for all, and all of the different ways that we have been able to nurture our spiritual growth there. And then this is a photo of Pilgrim Cove Camp, our other camp in Idaho, which is not responsible to the board and so doesn't get voted on at these meetings, but is part of the conference and is owned by the Idaho Association Churches. Our camps have finally opened up and have been able to be a place for spiritual growth. And I was so grateful to be able to spend a few days at Pilgrim Cove and to be able to be in the forest at Camp Adams for one of their single day spirit days for renewing our spirit. And that is one of the ways that we have been nurturing spiritual growth in this conference. Amplifying our prophetic voice. Pam already talked about this, but it was super exciting to see our gender safety and equity in ministry settings resolution go to General Synod, be voted on at General Synod, be strengthened in committee, and then passed by the gathered assembly. I will tell you, I went to all of those meetings. I was in every one of those meetings, and I saw national staff at the committee meetings and at the implementation meeting. And I chatted with them in the background and said, I noticed that you're here. And each time they said, this is so important and this will drive our work. And so thank you, Central Pacific Conference, for leading the rest of the church in gender safety and equity in ministry settings. And I have a photo of Mount Hood here because why East? Why East? When I'm driving around in Oregon, you come around a corner and it surprises you every time. You always know it's there, and then it surprises you. You come around a corner, or you come over a hill, and all of a sudden there it is. And I feel like that's the way it is with the prophetic voice that our churches have in our communities across this conference. Everywhere I go, I know that you're there, a strong rock, doing justice work in your communities. And then all of a sudden you appear, and I'm surprised again to see Corvallis welcoming their members and Bridgeport welcoming their members who don't have houses, to see the voice for LGBTQ inclusion in the Treasure Valley, to see all of the different ways, healthcare for all, earth justice. Whenever there is a voice for prophecy that needs to be raised up in our communities, it's your voice. 9 of our churches participated in the Reckoning with Racist History project of the Common Table, by far the largest cohort of any of the churches and faith communities that participated in that project. And that brings us to becoming an anti-racist conference. I'm so grateful to Heart, Soul, Spiritual Project for seeding money to our anti-racism fund and for making it possible for us to put money in the budget. That money is going to run out. And the board has agreed that they would put it in the budget this year, and that next year they would put it in the budget again. And they would find the money to fund that work. And so thank you to Heart to Soul, and thank you to the board for that. And thank you to the members of our board who participated in the Reckoning with Our Racist History project of the Common Table. on Wednesday night, we're going to hear from Taylor Stewart, who was instrumental in bringing about this marker in Coos Bay, honoring the memory of Alonzo Tucker, who was lynched in Coos Bay. And that was just one of the many histories that were raised up and learned about in this project, and churches across the conference raised up and learned and undug histories. So where are we going? The coronavirus is going to be with us for a long time, and we need to learn how to live in the midst of this pandemic. We now have a vaccine that is effective, and I'm glad that churches are, and we're also learning things about how to protect one another, how to protect our neighbors. I'm glad for churches who are figuring out how to continue to be church, whether it's online or in person or hybrid, meeting in outdoors, all of the different ways that we're learning to be church together. The climate is also changing, and the world is changing. And in the midst of the coronavirus and the climate, we have got to make sure that we are passing the mic and amplifying the voices of those who are most affected by these. While we're taking vaccines ourselves, we also have to advocate for those who don't yet have access to vaccines. We have to build communities of love and trust that can weather the storms that are coming. We need to nurture our spirits with life-giving water and continue to do our swap meets and continue to gather in the camps when we can. We must amplify the voices of those who are most affected, not take their voices, not speak for those who don't have voices. They all have voices, even if they can't speak and speak in sign language. Everyone has a voice, but we can amplify the voices of those who are most affected. And we will continue to do that as we become an anti-racist conference, as we seek to dismantle systems of oppression and privilege, even those systems in our own church, and as we create systems and structures where everyone thrives. Everywhere I go in this conference, every time I speak to a church, I say thank you. Thank you for being the United Church of Christ for this time and for this place. You are the Central Pacific Conference. We are the Central Pacific Conference together, and we are the conference the United Church of Christ called to live in the midst of these changing times. And thank you. Thank you for being the church for this time and for this place. The next thing.
Tyler,
yes.
Thank you for being our conference minister in this time, in this place. We are so blessed.
I'm glad to be ministering with you. And I am glad to be ministering with so many of our clergy who do ministry in this conference. And now is the time when we're going to recognize some of the milestones of ministry in our conference. And we always start with those who have ministered over 50 years. And I don't know how many or if any of these are in the room, but I want you to look at this list and write in the comments your blessing of some of these names that you see, your gratitude for them being present in the world and for their ministry. One of them is Hector Lopez, who got the Huneman Award today. I'm grateful for your ministry, Hector and Jean Ross. Hector always said that they were conference ministers together, co-conference ministers. I'm grateful for you. Thank you all, with a special shout out to Carl, who continues to bless us in the Dalles. Congrats on 55 years, Hector. God bless Stephen Lusk. Ed Martin is a role model and great addition to Vancouver UCC. Thank you all for your ministry among us. Love to Bill Green. Blessings to so many here. Special shout out to Phil Oliver, who mentored me in interim ministry. That's from David. Thank you for your service and ministry. Thank you, Jim Nolan. Gratitude for the blessings brought to us by Carl Verkuterin and Hector Lopez. I give thanks for Carl in the Gorge. Thanks to all of you for your years of support and love. Oh my goodness, there's like 20 more. Thank you to all the ministers who gave their lives in service to God and humanity. Blessings to all these who've served in the church and continued to bless us with their gifts and presents. Hector, Jean, Carl, Phil Oliver. Grateful for Norm Bengal, me too. Blessings on you and thanks for everything, Jean Ross. So many names of thankful servants for the church, thankful for their leadership and care. Thank you, Vancouver UCC members, Ed Martin, Charlie Ross, and Richard Teffren. All these continue. Thank you, Joseph Newcomer. Blessings to each of you. Thank you for all your years of service in the church. Interesting to see the gender back then. Yes, we now serve in a conference with more than 50% of our ministers are women. Imagine all the lives that have been touched. Norm, Charlie, Carl, Hector, and Jean, you were my mentors. That's from David Avison. Thanks to Jean Ross for your tireless support of Camp Adams. Thanks to Norm Bengal. Thank you all for all of those shower of blessings in the comments section. Now we're going to go to the next slide. These are the people who have served 50 years, 35 years, 15 years, 45 years. Oh, let me go right to left. 50 years, 45 years, 40 years, 35 years, 30 years, 25 years, 15, 10, 20, and 5. And I invite you again, put your blessings, shower them with blessings, and living water shower in the comment section. I'll go back and start reading again. So many of you have been my dear friends and mentors over the years. When I read these names, I'm struck with how much I miss seeing you. That's from Denise. Merritt McCall was my pastor as I was growing up. That's from Sheila. Celebrating Al Vole, Rich Osborne, and Norm Bengal, Bill Green, Charlie Ross. Love and gratitude to Steve Lusk for his service at Riverside. Wonderful memories of working with Merritt McCall. Thanks for Phil Oliver. Thank you to Rich Osborne. Thanks to Gary Vaughn for Night Watch Ministry. Yes. Blessings to Frank Baldwin. Thank you for your ministry on the Committee on Ministry, Frank. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you for your leadership and presence, Frank Baldwin. Here's Kim Vogel. What? I remember when Kwasi began his ministry as a youth pastor 35 years ago. Rebecca Guadino, you are a gift and a blessing. Blessings on you, Kurt Katzmar. Deb Patterson is great. So grateful to all of you. Blessings, Gail. Yeah, I noticed your name on this list too. Thank you, Ann Muir. Thank you for your collegiality. There's so many, 29 messages on here. We can stop sharing now. So grateful for all of you who are in between those big years, who haven't yet reached 50 years. Thank you for all of our ministers in this conference, for all of the ministry that happens in for chaplains at bedsides, and for the ministry in pulpits, and for the ministry on the streets, for all of this ministry that happens, that is authorized by the Committee on Ministry. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, for your fabulous report. And we have somebody that's rejoined us, which is Jen Butler. So Jen,
Yay.
hopefully it's all right with you, but we're going to spotlight you so that everybody can see you, because I assume you know, maybe you don't know, that you received the Gender and Witness Award, the up and coming Justice and Witness, not gender, but Justice and Witness Award. And I, for some reason, can't spotlight her. Can you spotlight her?
I can't either.
You might.
So you were one of our Justice and Witness Award winners, Jen, and we're so glad for the ministry that you do in Corvallis, for the way you lead that church with fierceness for our friends who don't have houses.
I think Adam had said before she was having internet connection.
Yeah, and Jen says in the comments, I can't get my camera or mic on, friends, but I am stunned and honored.
We are so thankful to have you in our conference, Jen. Thank you for all the service that you do. So anyway, it's time for our votes. So let's see. Our first vote is for the bylaws change. So Tyler, did you get any messages?
No.
So is there anybody that has any thoughts or questions that you want to ask before we vote? Or clarifications? And thank you, David, for being our parliamentarian. I'm glad that so far you haven't needed to do anything.
That's the best way.
Okay, I'm so glad to hear from David. He really is here. So right now it looks like we have 54 voting yes, 1 is voting no, 1 is abstaining. And Jean, how many votes did you get?
I had 2 yes votes.
Okay, so we have 56 yes votes. So it looks like this motion, or isn't motion, no, the recommendation to approve the bylaws changed has passed. So thank you all. So now we can have a minimum of 14 and up to 20 on Committee on Ministry. Thank you for that. And then we'll call Jenny back up.
Thank you, everyone. I will just quickly share my screen again so you can see the slate, which is the same, except we did receive 1 nomination from the floor. That is for Wider Church Ministries. Eric Anderson from Ainsworth is nominated and has accepted a nomination to serve on Wider Church. So otherwise, the slate is as stands from earlier. One thing I will say, Committee on Ministry, we set that team with understanding the max of 14. We now have room for up to 20. So our bylaws allow that after the vote is taken today, if there are any additional changes, if there are vacancies and folks want to serve, then the board can appoint people to serve in between now and our next annual gathering. So after today, if you or you know someone who feels called to serve on Committee on Ministry or in the vacancies for local church ministry and educational ministry team or on Wider Church, you can let me know, or you can let any of our nomination teams people know, or any of the board members know, and the board can approve those changes at their next board meeting. Are there any additional questions or clarifications or nominations?
Well, hearing none, thank you, Ginny. And thank you for explaining about the board being able to appoint. So please, any of you consider if you would like to serve in any of those vacancies. We would love to add you. So Gail, if you want to go ahead and put up the vote for approving the nomination slate as Ginny presented it. And Ginny, I just want to compliment you too and your nomination team. It has been just great. It's so well organized. And I know Adam, thank you for your help on nominations also. So just thank you for all your work.
We have a great team and a great co-chair in Jeannie Randall Bodman. And so thanks to all of you. And thanks to everyone who was able to say yes this year. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So Jean, how many do you have that have voted?
As I used to say in Chicago, you can vote early and vote often. So I had 7 yes votes.
I love you, Jean. So 7 yeses. And Jean, also, thank you also for taking the minutes. And I know you'll go back and watch the recording and try to capture things that you missed. The recording is actually really helpful when you're taking minutes. So it looks like we have, well, let's see, I have to get my math here. What do we have, 65 votes or so? 64? 62? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, so our nomination slate is accepted. Yay! Difter. So if you could, Tyler, spotlight Vicky, one of our mods who is just about to be the moderator. She was our moderator elect and is about to become moderator. Woo, Vicky. So again, we meet through Zoom, but we decided that it was really important to get together. We tried to meet at Multnomah Falls, and then there was an accident, so I couldn't get there. So the next day, I drove out to Hood River, and I'm not glad for the accident and what happened because of that, but I'm really thankful that I was able to go up to your church, Vicki, at Riverside and see your beautiful view, and then be down on the river with you. And I'm just so thankful that a year ago you said yes to being moderator elect. Our conference is in good hands with you and our mod squad, and with Cinta will be on our team. I'm sad that Adam won't be there, but he's still our advisor, or can be an advisor. So without further ado, I would like to show you, or they're going to play the video of our gavel handoff. Vicky, it is my pleasure to be with you in person by the Columbia water, this life-giving water. So it is with great honor that I give you the official moderator necklace, the official stole, and most importantly, your gavel. So we are so blessed to have you as moderator for the Central Pacific Conference. Thank you for saying yes, and thank you for being part of the mod squad. It's been amazing getting to know you.
Thank you, Pam. It's an honor to hold this position and to follow in your beautiful footsteps.
And we can still get to work together.
And we get to work together.
So thank you, Vicky. Now I turn it over the meeting to you.
Oh my.
And Tyler.
What have I done? What have I done? Oh, I'm so big. Okay. Well, thank you, Pam. It is an honor to walk in your footsteps and Adam's footsteps. I look forward to what we will be able to do side by side this coming year. So thanks to all of you for your entrusting me with this responsibility. It's an honor.
And Pam, I'm going to put you back in here. So we're going to have Vicki represent all of the new people who have been elected today. And so you will respond to all of those. And then all the rest of us get to also affirm the leadership of those who have been elected today. And Pam, I'm going to ask you to represent all of the rest of us as we. And so this is our litany for the affirmation of ministry. And this is for all of you who are here in this meeting who have accepted a call, either a new call or a continued call today, and for all of us who look to you as leaders. These people have been called by God in accordance with the faith and order of the church to serve among us. They accepted their call and are before us in witness to their willingness to serve. These people have been called by God to serve in various ministries in God's world. They have accepted their call and desire to witness to that call in the presence of this community. Siblings, sisters, and brothers in Christ, it is an honor to be trusted with responsibility for particular service in the ministry of the church. Having prayerfully considered the duties and responsibilities of your ministry, are you prepared to serve with the help of God in Christ's name and for the glory of God? Vicki will respond, I am, and the rest of you can respond at home.
I am, with the grace of God.
Do you promise to exercise your ministry diligently and faithfully, showing forth the love of Christ? And the response is, I do, relying on the grace of God.
I do, relying on the grace of God.
Members of this community, you have heard the promises of Vicki and also of all of our other siblings and sisters and brothers in Christ who have answered God's call to service. Let us affirm our intention to live in covenant with them. Do you promise to love these, honor their leadership, assist them, that together we may be a faithful church of Jesus Christ?
We do.
We do. Let us pray. Thank you, God, for your call on this community, for your call on these leaders, for your call to us to minister together. Holy Spirit, fill us, guide us, lead us, go before us, that we may be your hands and feet in the world, fostering stronger connections, nurturing spiritual growth, amplifying the prophetic voice of our siblings, sisters, and brothers, and becoming an anti-racist conference. We ask this all in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Now I think you get to, oh, we need to recognize some folks before you close the business.
Indeed. And are you doing that?
I think I am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, I just want to say thank you to the planning team, to the tech hosts, to all of the folks who made this day possible. We are just barely on time. We're like a little bit ahead of time, which is fantastic. And we wanted to close this time and then Vicky's going to gavel us out, and then we also have 2 more announcements after the gavel. But we wanted to close our time together, our business meeting together, hearing from the planning team for this gathering, where they find living water.
Where do I go for living water? I take a walk with my dog, Mac. There he is. There's Mac. And we frequently do encounter water on our walks, but Mac requires me to take a break from what I'm doing. And that's always a good thing.
There are so many things that give me energy and source me and are the things that I consider living water in my life. But I think above all, music and the arts are what really are sources of living water for me.
Hey folks, my name is Laura Robinson. I'm the minister at Bethel in White Salmon, and one of the places I go for living water is my front yard underneath this beautiful dogwood tree. It's where I reconnect with my neighborhood, my dog, myself, a good book, and just slow life down for a little bit.
I'm Reverend Adam Hange, pastor of Hillsborough UCC and immediate past moderator for the Central Pacific Conference. And this is a place that is living water to me. The swimming hole at Camp Adams and watching our little ones jump in and take the plunge.
When my spirits are ebbing, I'm most likely to find a place to settle in and open the book that I'm reading and lose myself in the story. Books have been my living water, my link to my mind, heart, and spirit ever since I can remember.
Where do I go for living water? I was born in the land of 10,000 lakes. I've lived by the Pacific Ocean, and now I live in river country. I am most settled and spiritually content when I live near the flowing water.
My living water is Willamette River. I love the water. I love the people. I love the animals. I see God in so many places along this river, and I'm so thankful to have it in my life.
This is where I go for living water. This is my reading nook. There are my books. This is where I have my morning meditation, my morning devotionals, my silent meditation every morning for living water.
Where do I go for living water? Whether it's in my garden meditating, in the old growth forest that I love, or by water that inspires me. Living water for me is knowing that the living Christ is as close as my breath and that I'm never separated from God's love.
Very nice, Tara.
Thank you, team, for putting together a wonderful gathering and sharing your living water with us. And I think my official duty, my one remaining official duty for today is to close out our meeting. I traveled, I'm actually in Minnesota, where I traveled for a little family reunion in honor of my mom's birthday. And so I did not bring the gavel along. I thought carrying it in my suitcase in the plane might pose a bit of a problem. So I left the gavel behind. So I don't have a gavel. Imagine a little gavel as I close out this meeting, and may we go forth guided by the Spirit side by side. Amen.
Amen. Remember, we get to heaven side by side. I'm glad to be with you all. Thank you.